Now let us understand the passwordless login. Password login is the least secure way of connecting to the remote servers. Even though it gives security, it is least secure way. If someone watches on your folder and if they are smart enough to identify your keystrokes, then they can know the password and then they can log in on your behalf and then they can cause damage for you. That's why on all the production servers, it is better not to use password login to connect and instead use passwordless login. So for passwordless login, I am exiting here. On the client, in this case, let us go to this picture. We are trying to establish passwordless login from this machine to this machine. It is not only between the machines, but also between the users. So let us understand here. What I am doing on my local machine, I am logged as itversity. You can see my user and my machine name is this one. This is my host name. And what is the user I use to log in? itversity. From this user, we are connecting to the remote machine and the host name is whatever public IP we are using. So let us use this. And the user on the remote machine which I am trying to connect is nothing but CentOS. Let me zoom in a bit so that people who are watching my screen can actually make some sense out of it. This is my host name and this is the username which I am trying to connect. If there is a user on Linux or Mac or even Windows, there is a home directory associated with it. If it is Windows, what is the home directory? Here I am connecting to the Windows machine and the home directory is nothing but C drive users. Whatever user you logged in, you used to log in is the home directory. So this is the home directory in Windows. In Mac or in Linux, you can always run cd command and it will take you to your home directory and you can run pwd. On my Mac, this is my home directory. On Linux, on this remote machine, if you run pwd, it will show the home directory. Whenever you log into the remote machine, whatever directory you lands in will be your home directory. Sometimes it might be different also. The reason is while creating the user, we can specify whatever location you want to get the details. You can go to etc password and grep for CentOS because that is the username for which you want to check. And sometimes system admins might decide to give the home directories on a different location. To get those details, you can actually run cat etc password grep CentOS or whatever username you are looking for and you will get the home directory for that user. It is customizable while creating the users and typically administrators will decide where the home directory should be given. This is the home directory. Whenever you establish a connection, you will automatically land in your home directory. And as part of the home directory, if you do ls-altr, on EC2 instances, you see this .ssh directory for you. And here you need to focus on the properties. The .ssh should always have 700 permissions. And we will talk about 700 permissions at a later point in time when I talk about managing directories and files. For now, make sure you have these permissions on this directory. If you don't have, you can just run chmod 700 directory name and it will give that permissions to the directory. Make sure you have this, otherwise you will not be able to log in using SSH. It's very, very important that you never change the properties of this .ssh directory to something else. Now SSH is running and we are able to log in using password. If we have to set up passwordless login, typically we are trying to connect from our machine onto the remote machine using this information. This is the host name and this is the username. And typically we will be in the home directory when we log into our machine and launch the terminal. Now you can run something called SSH keygen. When you run SSH keygen, what it will do, it will actually create something called private key and public key. What is the purpose of this? First, let us understand where this file should be. The private key should be there in .ssh of your machine from where you are trying to connect. So in this case, on your PC, typically will have private key. And public key should be copied onto the remote machine's authorized keys files. That is where there is a property in shd_config which will control your authorized keys directory. I will come back to that at a later point in time. For now, just remember that private key should be there on your PC under .ssh directory and public key should be there under in authorized key of the remote machine. By default, it will create two files whenever you run this SSH keygen. The purpose of running SSH keygen is to create a file for storing the private key and a file for storing the public key. If you don't give any names when it prompts for it, it will use id_rsa as the file name for private key and id_rsa.pub as the file name for public key. And the location will be your home directory. Tilde is representation of your home directory in Linux or Unix flavors. Your home directory .sh, that will be the default location and the file name for your private key, and this is for your public key. So these two files will be created by default if you just run SSH keygen with the default. But if I don't want to use the default names because I already have some important keys, and hence I'm giving a different name. I'm giving it as live demo, and here I have to specify the path also, not just the file name. So I will be saying tilde.ssh live demo. You can also add additional security by giving a passphrase. Whenever you log in for the first time for a given day, it will prompt you for the passphrase. You can log in with the passphrase for the day, and for next 24 hours, it will not ask for the passphrase. Anyway, I'm not using passphrase here. If you are interested, you can explore it further. And then it is complaining that directory does not exist. Let me try once again. Probably I might have to give the complete path, not shortcuts using tilde. Yeah, we have to give complete path like this. Now, if I say ls-ltr .ssh grep live demo, I gave a typo. That's fine. I have a public key and private key. Now I can rename this also. So let me make them correct. Let me fix this typos. Now I have live demo private key and live demo public key. Now to whatever servers you want to connect using passwordless login, on that server you have to copy this public key. For that, you need to have password or login before, or some other way of ability to logging into that server. If you don't have permissions to log into that server, you will never be able to do this. As we already have access, now what I'm doing, I'm copying this file live demo.pub to my remote machine. As I have password login, I'm using the password login itself, and my remote machine IP address is this one. And once here, it actually copied the new line character. And if you run SCP like this, it will not copy. Instead, it will create a file locally. Grep CentOS. It actually created a file locally. This is not my intention. I am removing this, and now I am doing SCP once again. After the username at hostname, you have to give colon, and then you have to give the directory to which you want to copy the file. In this case, I want to copy livedemo.pub to the home directory on my remote machine. It will prompt for the password. Now I am entering the password. Now I can say SSH CentOS at, sorry, I already have this copied. I thought I have only IP address, but I have username as well as IP address. I pasted that and I am running once again. Now, if you go to .ssh in this machine, there is the authorized keys. To facilitate the passwordless login, using this public key for this user itversity to user CentOS on the remote machine, I have to copy the contents of this livedemo.pub to this authorized keys. So what I have to do is I am going to my home directory because I have copied the pub file into my home directory, and then I can say cat livedemo.pub. This is for redirecting the contents of that file .ssh authorized keys. And don't worry if you don't understand what is this double angler, you just follow for now. I will cover these things a lot more in detail as we proceed further. Now authorized keys will have public key associated with my live demo private key also. Now I can exit from here. Now I can say I'm giving my new combination. I'm not using the original one which is thrown at us by Amazon. Typically on our servers which are built on-prem, first you will have the password login to it, and then you have to enable passwordless login, and then you can log in without the password. Now I can actually give the path of my private key, which is nothing but .sh/live demo on my machine, and then I can say CentOS at whatever server we are trying to connect, and then hit enter. Now it logged in without the password using the combination of, using the key generated with live demo. From whatever server you want to connect to whatever user, first you have to generate on the source, and then you have to copy into the SSH directory of this user, and then you should be able to connect. Sometimes your .ssh directory might not be here under CentOS user. If you do not have, then there are multiple ways to take care of it before copying the authorized keys. One is you can actually say mkdir.ssh in your home directory, or to be safer, you can say tilde.ssh, which will create the home directory in your, which will create .ssh directory in your home directory, and then you can change the ownership, not ownership but the permissions 700 on this .ssh if the directory does not exist. Then you can copy the public key into the authorized keys, and even on authorized keys, if you go to .ssh, even on authorized keys, if we have any other permissions than this, your attempt to login might fail. So let me play with this. Here I am saying chmod 755 on authorized keys. This is one of the common mistakes people do. They just copy and then it will have permissions other than 700 at .ssh level or authorized keys level. Let me show you. The ideal thing is on your source as well as target, .ssh should have this permission. But when it comes to the private key which you are using on source should have 600 permissions, the way you are seeing here. And also on the target, authorized keys should have 600 permissions. Only when these permissions also match, the SSH will work. Otherwise, you will get permission denied error. So now I have changed the properties for authorized keys where I have given execute permissions also on that file along with the read permissions for others. Now, if I copy this and if I attempt to log in from a different session, I think authorized keys is not a big deal. It works fine. Now let me exit from here and let me change the permissions on the SSH level. So I'm changing the permissions on authorized keys to 600, but now I'm saying 755 on .ssh. If I exit from here, I will not be able to connect even from here. And there is no easy solution from EC2. It's very complicated solution to fix this and able to log in. Now let me try connecting this using the same private key, and here it will fail. Oh, it is working. It should not work. I don't know why it is working. Okay, let me do this. Let me go here and let me check the permissions on .ssh file, .ssh directory. It is showing read and executable permission. Ideally, it should not let us log in. I don't know why it is letting us logging in. We don't need to restart .ssh to be in effect, but for some reason it is actually letting us log in. But typically it does not. I don't know why. Let me do one more thing. Now let me go to the source. I'm coming out of this and we are using live demo private key on the source, grep live demo. And you can see it is having 600 permission. Now let me change the live demo permissions from 655. And now if I try to log in, you see bad permissions. On the source, it should not be compromised. I think on target, it doesn't matter. But if you have to connect to different hosts from this server, then again, this can cause issues. Ideally, always the .ssh permissions should be like chmod 700 only. But from wherever you are trying to connect, it should have 700 permissions on .ssh and 600 permissions on the private key. In this case, live demo. Make sure you keep this in mind. Otherwise, you will not be able to connect.